the foreword of his book, it states, Growing Out Loud captures the depth, breadth, height of a life that has loved and pursued knowledge, understanding, purpose, application, and service for the benefit of all and for the fulfillment of his God-given calling. The food revolutionary has truly lived well. Keith Rashid Nuri is the author of Growing Out Loud, Journey of a Food Revolutionary. I didn't know his book existed, and I didn't know he existed. I reached out to my dear friend Pattie Baker, telling her about the types of connections I wanted to make for my next set of podcast interviews. I wanted to really focus in on businesses and visionaries who are shaping agriculture, who are educating our future generation, who are tackling big food issues. And Pattie referred me to a few companies and people in her network down in Georgia. She linked me to a website for a nonprofit called Truly Living Well Center for Natural Urban Agriculture. The work of this organization around education, growing in an urban setting, building community, agritourism, and edutourism was extraordinary. But I didn't want to speak to the people in charge now. I wanted to speak to the visionary behind all of this amazing work, Keith Rashid Nuri. I didn't know he wrote a book, so before our interview, I dove into reading his book, his story, his inspiring journey, literally around the world, from attending Harvard and UMass Amherst to working in ag in California, Michigan, Georgia, and Alabama, and then nationally and internationally with Cargill, a big ag for-profit company, eventually working in a pretty big position during the Clinton administration, and the culmination of all his studies, experience, and travels, creating the Truly Living Well Center for Natural Urban Agriculture in Atlanta, Georgia. This interview with Rashid is powerful. It is blunt, it is telling, and it is purposeful. There are so many levels of learning to glean from our conversation, above everything that Rashid and I discussed. His integrity and sheer willingness to do what was right resonated with me the most. It is so difficult in our world to stand up and take action for what you really believe is the right thing, as there are always consequences to doing just that. And there are so many currents working against us to test our integrity. But in all of his stories, Rashid stayed true to his integrity, and that resonated with me deeply. I am so excited for you to listen to my conversation with Rashid and take away the learnings that resonate the most with you and your life. This is Jen Ross, your AgriTourist podcast host. If you enjoy our podcast, please subscribe and leave us a comment. Enjoy my conversation with Rashid. I am so excited to talk to you today because Pattie Baker is our connection. I love Pattie. She's been such an inspiration for me. And I asked her about a month ago or so, I asked her, I'm like, I said, do you have anybody you'd recommend that I speak to, any organizations that you think that I should check out that really are focused on education and agriculture. And she linked me to Truly Living Well Center. And I absolutely was like, wow, this is amazing what they're doing. And then I found you as the visionary for that center. And I was like, I want to talk to him. And she's like, well, I happen to be friends with him. So when I saw that you had the book, I purchased the book and I read your book, Growing Out Loud, Journey of a Food Revolutionary. And I read the whole thing, the entire
Wow.
thing. I like Pattie, have like all these things and then highlights. I have your story from start to finish is moving. It's inspiring. It's like, wow, you have been through just from start to finish. It was just like, not only, there's this farming component, which obviously is our connection, I'll say, but you've been in corporate, you've been in nonprofit, you've been in government, you've been around the world, nationally and internationally. So there's so many dimensions to this, and I obviously picked a few things that um, I wanted to just we'll see where the conversation goes because it can go in so many different directions. Um, but it was interesting. I do want to say, you know, two things that I found that really resonated with me about you. There's obviously a lot we don't have in common, but there were two things that I was like, I felt so in common with you. And one of them was your authenticity and integrity when it came to doing what you thought was the right thing, what you thought was the right thing for the people that you impacted, regardless of what would happen with your job or whatever you were doing. There were so many instances that you just followed, your integrity came first. And I sometimes, that's just something that you don't always find. A lot of people get intimidated by whatever's going on, their job, losing their job. But I loved how you always put that first. I, I,
Yeah,
I
I
just
had
loved
a
that. It was very powerful for me.
good. I had, I had a conversation this week with today's Tuesday, so it must have been over the weekend, maybe yesterday. And a young woman who I know very well was talking, saying that people told her just accept the check and do the job. I said, no, all of this is your work. Now, if you want to be just an employee and punch a clock, that's on you. But you got 24/7, which is your work. So what are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? So that concept that you just introduced of integrity, uh, yeah, that's been part of my credo, I must admit.
It's at the core of you. And I felt that in everything you did, every opportunity that came your way. So it just definitely resonated deeply with me. And we'll talk about that more. But the other thing is just your ability to stay the course on, within agriculture even. And, there are a lot of ebbs and flows and changes and opportunities that didn't work out. And I definitely, that definitely resonated with me because I've had a lot of stops and starts but there's something in me, deep in me that's like, stay the course. Just, what's important about what you're trying to do in agriculture. So it just that also resonated deeply with me. But I guess I want to start by asking you in the very beginning, what was it about agriculture and farming and food that caught your attention? Like, what were those things early on that caught your attention that you're like, this is interesting, or I want to dig deeper into this?
That's it. It's a great question. Um, I had some indications early what my career was going to be, but I didn't know what it was going to be. When I was in high school, I ran for student body president back in 1965. Let me get that right. Yeah, had to be 65. Um, and one of the planks, I had a platform of 10 things that was promising my colleagues, cohorts that I was, fellow students that I was going to do. And one of them was to add a fresh fruit and juice machine on campus to put next to the soda and the candies. And I did. Um, that's a hindsight revelation that was a very early indication. I started learning how to grow food out in my backyard. Didn't know nothing about it. Just started doing it, and I can
How
remember.
how'd that go?
Well, it was looking back. It was a. I had some corn out there, and I was told that corn tastes best. Boil some water, and then grab the corn off the stalk and put it in the boiling water for 3 minutes, and I did. But also to make sure that corn was in good shape, that the bugs didn't eat it, I had sprayed so much. Uh, I don't even remember what the name of some kind of dust out there. And it was just everywhere. The whole yard was white with that stuff in there. And I didn't know any better at that time. It was later that I came to understanding of organics. Uh, but it was Brother Randy that got me started, and that was the first garden. How old was I then? Oh, I come back, move. I must have been 21, somewhere in there.
That's impressive, though, for a 21-year-old to be doing a garden.
Mm,
That's very
yeah.
impressive.
That's amazing. You think so? Thank you.
So, what progressed it from there, though? You know, you had these inklings. I mean, I'm impressed by the, you know, the, what you did in high school. I mean, but what progressed it from there? I mean, you went, was it, I know there, you went to Harvard, you went to Amherst, UMass Amherst. Did it develop there? Where was the drive that really started taking you on this course?
Well, it's an interesting question. But I was interested in two things. I was interested in health and nutrition, and I was also interested in nation building, how you build countries. And so I went to school twice. I took off, the first couple of years, right after high school, I was enrolled, didn't do very much. They kicked me out, and I took off about 3.5 years. And I wrote out my own curriculum, what I wanted to learn. It was about nation building. I wanted to know how the men and women who created the environment we live, how they built their country, what are the values and institutions that were built to create nationhood. And I was sitting in the library one day. I went back to school, I started having children. My oldest son was born just before I was 22. And I went back to school. I was wrote out a curriculum of what I wanted to learn, had enrolled at San Diego State. And then I got a call to come back to Boston to do some work with a group that was doing work around African liberation. So I went back to school. When that, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering a little bit. Let me
That
trying to get the sequence. Uh, when that organization fell apart, I said, well, I was already in school. Let me go back. And that one of the issues, internal conflicts that I had to resolve was about being a Harvard man. And I decided that didn't interest me at all because there was a certain level of disdain I had for what Harvard represented. However, having come back to Boston, the easiest school for me to get back into with the most money was Harvard. And I knew what I wanted to study. I had that in front of me. And the dean interviewed me. He wanted to know, they said that they didn't think it would be safe because they thought I would be a negative influence on the student body. And there's a phrase he had. It may come back to me in a minute. Um, but I wasn't worried about that. I was really focused. I took science and government. Political science was my major, but I one thing that I've given my children, every semester you in school take some form of math and science, and I did that. So I was sitting in the library writing a paper on theory and practice, comparing the work of Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya and Julius Nyerere in Tanzania. And Tom Mboya, who was the finance minister under Kenyatta, said, with all the technology available in the world today, there's no reason we cannot chemically synthesize enough food to feed everybody. I said, whoa. I had been studying health and nutrition. That did not make any sense at all to me. And that's when God spoke to me. I call it my burning bush experience. And years ago, I would say it's when like a suit of clothes came down out the sky. But no, it was God in my ear. I'm real clear about that now. It said, learn everything about food from the seed to the table and to do it experientially. And that's what I set out to do. So that portions of my resume that you just you recited earlier reflects that trip. And it started right then. Since I had all that math and science, there was no reason I couldn't, it made it possible for me to go get a master's degree in plant and soil science. Because I had the undergraduate background and everything. I
Right.
did everything except organic chemistry, which was for all them young people who wanted to go to med school, and I did not want to be a doctor. So I had everything else. So that's how academically that's how that got started. And I breezed through grad school because I knew what I wanted to learn. They gave me a choice of writing a paper for a thesis, doing a thesis, or making a presentation. So I said, I'll make a presentation. And
Yeah, I figured that one.
every class that I took fed into what I was going to present to faculty and staff. I guess I don't know what you know how long ago that was, man. That was back in the early 1970s. But anyway, you had to make a prayer. You had the professors and staff. I guess there were some grad students there you had to present, and then they could ask you questions, and I handled it, because it all tied together. Uh, at the end of it, one of my professors, maybe been the chairman, says, you really don't know any more than a undergrad coming out of here. I said, well, cool. Because I just came there. I wanted to learn about plants and about soil, just to get
Right.
fundamental basics down. You told me what I had to do, what was required. I did it. Give me my degree. I'm gone. No, not even say give it to me because I didn't even get my degree till about 4 years ago. I was gone. Okay. I got through there. I did that in a calendar year and got my master's degree and then proceeded to my professional work
So I know there was okay, you went to California. There was a lot of movements going on, but
all my
then you,
life.
yeah, yes, definitely. But then you ended up at a farm in the South. And I think there was the first one, Georgia. Was it Georgia? I think it was.
Well, I did some urban agriculture. I did I went back to San Diego. That was one that I spent about 3 months
Yeah,
driving all over the state. I rented
that was
I rented
impressive.
a little Volkswagen Bug and uh, travel all over the state, every kind of ag enterprise. California is the richest agricultural producing region in the entire history of the world.
Yeah.
Isn't, you know, if we get to it, water is a part of that story and where it came from.
Yeah, you quoted some things in the book, and I actually want to pursue reading
Yeah.
what you referenced in there. That was very interesting.
So I got to meet people all over the state, all up and down the San Joaquin Valley. Then I came back to San Diego and went to the extension service and said, "Can I have a job?" And they just kind of laughed at me and said, "No, we don't have any money." Said, "If I can get the money, can I come here and work?" And I did. I knew one of the supervisors, county supervisors. He provided the money, so they had to take me. They didn't have a choice. Well, I guess they did have a choice, but that's how I got in. I figured out how to pay myself. And that's when I really began extensive study of how to grow food. Had big files with all the uh, background, all the fruits and vegetables, and just got in and started doing some urban agriculture. So while I was with Brother Randy, the man that turned me on to it in Ben Bella, and then this got, where are we now? 1975. I had joined the Nation of Islam in 1969. And Miss Farrakhan came with, Elijah Muhammad's son. Let me back up one more step. Elijah Muhammad dropped his body in 1975. His son, who had announced to the community that he was going to succeed his father, took over, and he invited all the so-called educated Muslims to Chicago. Okay. And I had more book knowledge learning on agriculture than most, I guess, anybody else. Book learning, okay, the
Yeah.
degree. So I was appointed the regional national farm manager. And at that time, that we had four farms. There was a 160-acre farm over in Michigan that Mr. Muhammad used to go visit. But down south in Greene County, we had 4,000 acres. Marengo County, Alabama, Marengo County, Alabama, we had 5,000 acres. And over in Georgia, in Turl County, we had a 4,200-acre farm. And it was the most developed and advanced, and that's where I went
Yes.
and got my hands. So it was, I learned to swim the little that I can do in the deep end of the pool.
Well,
Uh,
that's what I wanted to talk about because, you were in obviously the West Coast, you were in, Massachusetts, and then you're going to the South. And, from the book, I think there was a lot of talk about that experience. There's very different, California, Massachusetts, and the South, very different. And I kind of felt that there was some struggles there, and opened
oh,
your eyes in many ways.
that's very interesting. I've never thought of it quite like that. The reason I like that contrast. It deserves a good answer. So let me get into it just a little bit. Because I've been traveling all my life. Okay, I went to 14 schools before I graduated high school in San Diego, starting in Massachusetts. And my mother divorced my father and married a sailor, Navy man. And they wanted to get as far away from my father as they could. That's how we got out to the West Coast. Uh, so coming south, that's because where the farms were. So I can remember my first trip south was in 1975, and me and a brother named Mario Abdus Salam was his name. We traveled down to go visit a farm and see what was actually there. So the first place I lived was in Montgomery, Alabama. I was there for a short time because Montgomery was right in the middle between the farms. So it gave me a chance to see what's up. And my two, three, fourth child, is that correct? Fifth child was born there. I got children. And he was born in Montgomery. Come on. Yeah, he was fifth. He was born in Montgomery, Alabama. Took him over to farm. He was, just this big. We decided to go to the Georgia farm because it was the most productive, had most activity. And that's how I got over there.
Well, I just wanted to know how that transition was to working, on a farm in the South. Did you, I mean, I know you highlighted a bunch of things in the book about instances that happened and just connecting in that community.
Yeah,
Um,
well, the South in 1975 was still terrible. The county that the farm was in is Turl County, and the people of the South, Southwest Georgia, called Terrible Turl. Uh, on the way down there, I had stopped in Atlanta at the park. I think it was Piedmont Park, asking for directions and trying to get some feeling from what's going on. I called it Terrell County. That's how it's spelled and how you would pronounce it, California. But in Georgia, it's Turl. And he tried to make some contrasts of how black people live, white people live. He says, you need to go over there on the south side of town and see how black folk live. And Southwest Atlanta, folk were living pretty good. But you got to remember, Georgia is the one place that you never had a serious, Atlanta never had a riot. The only riot they had in Atlanta was in 1906 when the white folks rioted to burn out the businesses that black people had up on Peachtree. Okay, so it's a big contrast. While the rest of America was burning during King's time, Atlanta never had an uprising like that. And part of that is because the extent to which uh, the segregation was so entrenched. Okay, you don't even find, you go down to South Georgia and you got very dark-skinned black folks. So the white men were not even messing with the women as much as they did in other parts of it. You go to Virginia, North Carolina, you find a whole lot of very light-skinned black people, and that's because the slave masters were raping the slaves' women and creating babies. And I know this may sound a little harsh, but this is the reality. You asked me that. Uh,
No, this
Not
is
South Georgia is as rough as it can get. And I was down there young, probably a little brash, uh, certainly over my head in terms of agriculture, but I jumped in. And as I said earlier, I learned to swim in the deep end of the pool. So it was very deep. So here I am on a 4,200 acre farm. The house that I lived in had a couple of acres of pecans around it. We had a dairy, sheep, 80-acre chicken farm,
wow.
as well as the 44,000 acres of ground to be farmed. And I got no support from Chicago, headquarters of the Nation of Islam, and just had to, I struggled. I did. I was trying to learn. There were a couple of older men around there that took me to school out there. Um, but I got no support from Chicago. So the real accomplishment what I accomplished there was to pay off a $250,000 debt. And I don't know what that would be in today's dollars, but it was substantial and I didn't have anything. And kept that land from being stolen by a man named Don Bridges, who wanted it badly. And eventually, after the family of Muhammad went to court, probate court, they sold that land so they could distribute the profit from the sale to the family in Chicago. And this is the big that was symbolic of the big problem that black people had. In the year of 1910, black people owned like 22 million acres of land that they farmed in this country. 22 million. Okay. By recently, it diminished to less than 2 million because folk got drawn to the north by the industrial. Ford offered what, $5 a day for people to come up there and work. So those blue collar jobs eventually, before Detroit fell apart and Japan rose in car making, them folk making $40,000 a year up there. And they would sell the land that they had down south to support their northern endeavors. And I think of my father. My father was an educator. He had he owned a piece of the sky, a condominium, and always had a nice car, dressed wonderfully, pocket full of credit cards. And he contrasts that and large bills. He had a mortgage, car notes, uh, credit card bills, and he contrasts that with Uncle Bubba down there in South Georgia, who had 100, maybe he had 100 acres if he was lucky, and he was able to raise his children, send them to school. He never had anything more than some jeans to wear and dirty boots. So who was rich? Who was living a better life? My daddy up there in the city, or Uncle Bubba down in the country? He was paid his bills, owned his land, educated his children. Where was the real wealth in that? And I use my own father, who I have a great deal of respect for, this analogy. Um, with no disrespect intended to him. It's just a very close example that of what I saw and how it impacted me. Um, life in the South was rough back in, I still is, 1975, people living in the same house with a cinder block house with a single light bulb, an outhouse and a pump to get water. And they've been doing that for generations on the same piece of property, same land that was owned by the white landowners, owners. Um, that was very harsh for me to see that. The impact was severe and harsh. because it was just slavery extended
Right.
and enslavement extended. And it wasn't pleasing. Across the road from us, our 4,200 acres, new communities had 6,000 acres. You may have known the name Shirley Sherrod, Charles Sherrod. They were the leaders, some of the leaders of new communities. They just they after 30, 40 years, more than that, they finally got a settlement. So she was able to they were able to buy a large property in Albany. And I was just down there last week, week before last, taking a look, trying to give them some whatever the benefit of my what I saw on their farm.
Right.
Um, so at that time you had there's a highway that goes from Leesburg to Albany, and here you had black folk that controlled 10,000 acres right there, right next to each other. And the white folks down there didn't like that at all. They did their very best to get it. They got the land from new communities, and they had to pay for the nation's farm, but they got it. Okay, they got it.
Right.
Get that back. It was intolerable to see black folk thriving. Like,
Uh,
let me turn that over.
so
Did I
there's a
answer
lot.
the
No,
question?
you did, and there's a lot to that. Let me ask you, so let me ask you specifically with agriculture, coming out of that experience, what were some of your takeaways from that experience when it came to running a farm and food access and at that time, in Georgia and in Alabama, the farms you were running? What were some of the takeaways you had at that time before you start your international adventures?
Oh yeah, it was quite a I learned how agriculture was done. Takeaways. I mean, you understand how this country was built, you see, and come to realize that the United States was built on the backs of black people. Hands down, no question about that. And folk gonna argue, but I got examples. I'll give you one example from my family. Thomas Edison is world famous in every textbook you can for his invention of electricity and distribution in this country. A man named Lewis Latimer invented the filament for a light bulb, which he provided to Edison. Okay? And that's how, because Edison, the light bulbs weren't working, they were blowing up and carrying on. But Lewis Latimer came up with the filament that made the expansion of electricity in the cities possible. And also, he got Tesla's alternating current versus his direct current, which is made lit up the world. I mean, before that, they were using whale oil, sperm oil, and so forth. What is the significance of that? Is that my grand uncle was Lewis Latimer. And you know how much money I've gotten from the invention of the filament and it's spread around the world? Yeah, that's the answer right there.
Yep.
Not a penny, nothing. Okay. So that when I say that this country was built on literally built on the backs of black people, it's in my family. All right. So it's close and helps me to best understand the dynamic. I don't care, you air conditioning, uh, street lights, stop and go on the street lights. I mean, just go through the heart surgery. You just go through the list. And it's my people who built this country, but we did not benefit from it. We have not benefited from it. So, takeaways. I saw how fundamentally important agriculture has been. Okay. George Washington Carver saved Southern agriculture. There was a brother who invented the cotton gin. Hmm. You just go, so you can go through the list of the history of this country, and one thing that I learned Another thing that I learned, history is always written by the victors, not the victims, not those who suffered. Black people didn't write the history of this country. That's why you don't see us in the books. That's why this whole concept of MAGA change, not wanting to have anything in the textbooks that says anything bad about white people or expresses the actual dynamic of the interaction between black and white people in this country. They don't want to have it because the truth hurts. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it out. Yeah, since I'm on this theme there, and I hope I'm not offending you or anybody else that's
You are
listening.
not. I want
Yeah.
to talk about this.
Hmm.
I
Uh, I
I think
forgot what
it's
I was saying.
important.
It'll come back. It'll come back.
So you say, well, you quoted Henry Kissinger in the book. It says, control the food and you control the people, control the oil and you control the nation, control the money and you control the world. And you go on to say, whoever controls your food controls you. The politics of agriculture is about how you get food to the people. That was very powerful. I don't know where I want to talk about that. So I don't know where you want to step off from that.
Well, however you want. Ask me a question. I'll give it a shot.
Well, I guess this is, I mean, what do you think are some of the underlying issues with our food system? And that is a big question. I know that.
It's huge.
I
Uh,
know it's huge, but what comes to your mind when I say that? And I know it's not just our national food system. It actually, because you, through your travels, learned about all the synergies internationally that impact the world's food system. So it's a loaded question, but I kind of don't know how to break that down. And I figured if I ask the question, something's going to jump off in your mind about.
yeah, let me start here. And you can expand it wherever you want to go. Yeah, I'm 77 years old. I can remember as a child saying, eat all your food because there's a starving Indian, a starving African somewhere. And that's just such a lie. There's never been a shortage of food. The thing is the distribution of the food. Who controls the food? In recent times, you look over what's happening in Sudan. Okay, you look what's happening in Gaza. I mean, that's quite recent. Even in jail, those people feed you in jail. You're going to eat whatever they give you. Okay, so whoever controls the food controls you, and that that was it's distressing. This is why we talk. I just came back from Ghana. We had meetings about food sovereignty, black food sovereignty, and how important that is. Many of these countries
Define food sovereignty, because I know you differentiate. I want just to so everyone's clear on what that means.
controlling means production, distribution, and exchange. Covers all food, and people need, if you don't control the production, distribution, and exchange of your food, then you're subject to someone else's control. Okay. Here's a recent one that just came, that's happening. The US has been bombing and killing people down in Venezuela. Okay. And they want to say it's about narcotics.
Right.
People ain't Americans love drugs, and that's why the drugs are getting here because they're willing to pay for it. What they're really doing down there, I always tell people, you want to understand history or anything that's going on in the world, follow the money. Okay, and Venezuela has oil, and that's what is really being bombed while they're taking over and likely going to invade that country if the Americans don't stand up and stop it. So it's true about food distribution also around the world, where it's grown, to have these countries produce, instead of being self-sufficient, have in communal agriculture, um, big ag gets in there and disrupts the system. I have examples of some folk down in Latin America, South America. They would have a small community where they would grow their food, they would have their animals, they lived there. Everything was self-contained, truly organic. And that's what how I define organic as complete. So they have everything they need to survive as a community. And then the big ag companies come in there and say, we want to grow soybeans. You grow soybeans. I said, no, I'm not growing soybeans. Got that. And they end up getting that land, send that man. The man goes to the city, enters poverty. He probably didn't have much cash when he was out in the country, but he was able to feed himself, clothe himself, have everything he needed right there in that community. And it gets disrupted by the big ag. And even that word community is important. Um, in a urban, a rural set if you come, most people in the world live in small houses that are big enough for them to eat and sleep, and that's it. If they want to commune with people, as soon as they step out of their hut, their house, they are in communion with a community. If someone comes into a village, a stranger comes in, everybody is able to come out there because that is the community. You can't do that now. People live in these high rises and don't even know who their neighbor is.
Right.
So that interaction that folks have doesn't exist like it once did. So probably towards as we get further into this conversation, well, I guess I'll start it now. My work in urban agriculture is to try to reintroduce communal agriculture to the community where people can come together. I don't care what your politics is, left, right, Republican, Democrat, whatever. The most common denominator on this planet Earth is food. People got to eat. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we're able to grow the food here in the city, bringing people together, that's helping to foster and build community, which I think is essential and very important. So community agriculture, particularly in a place like here, like Atlanta, which was, and I think it's probably still is the greenest city in America by virtue of trees and open space. You ever been down here?
No, I've passed through, but no, I have not.
It's more impressive to fly in here. And your friend Patty can confirm this. You fly into New York. Have you flown into New York?
Yes.
What do you see when you're flying in there?
A lot of gray and buildings.
All that concrete, all those buildings, you don't see any trees. You got to get
Yeah.
down and go visit Central Park. You fly into Atlanta, it looks like all the way your descent, a great big forest with some houses dropped in the middle. Okay, it's a big contrast. So in terms of open land and trees, Atlanta's the greenest city in America, and that makes it nice. So we had the opportunity. You see it now. I've been here for a while now, and see the changes that have taken place. Now you got all these apartment buildings and office buildings that are empty. COVID made sure a lot of that stuff was empty, and ain't nobody want to move in here. And it's taken away. I live in the woods. You keep seeing me look over this way. Out that window is forest. I can't grow anything here in my house, so that makes it nice. Uh,
So I want to, before we go back to Atlanta and talk about the nonprofit and the vision, because there's much to explore there. I want to talk about your experience with Cargill because I was actually surprised. I was like, wow, I was surprised you worked for them. I don't know. Because first of all, they're always this mysterious company that a lot of people don't know about. They know the name, but they don't know. So honestly, a lot of what you wrote was a big education for me about what they do and how they do it. So I thought it was important to talk about that because you referenced Big Ag. Do you consider them part of Big Ag?
Cargill's the biggest.
Yes. I just want to, I think it's just important for people to understand what they are and what they do. And like I said, it surprised me that you worked for them, but yet I think that was such an important piece of your education.
Oh,
And you had such an impact. And you also had the opportunity to visit Africa and, make a significant impact of where you visited. So I know that, you know, take that wherever you want to take it, but I really want to just a little explore that a bit because I think it really has an impact to this whole picture here.
After I left the farm that we talked about, where did I go? I went over to where did I go? I went over to Louisiana and worked for Father McKnight, the Southern Cooperative Development Fund. Worked with through black farmers throughout the co-ops throughout the South. And then I uh, built a training farm that only this is back in the late 80s. Yeah. And it just stopped production just a couple of years ago. The
Oh,
training built as a training farm. Then I went up to Minnesota and I participated in the management of a rose garden. We had 40,000 rose bushes under glass, ever blooms under glass. While I was there, I was able to go apply for a job at Cargill. And at that point, I wanted to see how food is moved around the world. And Cargill did it better than anybody else moving those commodities. And when I went, I was 10 years older. Cargill likes to hire people right out of school. And I was 10 years, early 30s, when I went there. Took a $20,000 pay cut because I wanted to see how food is moved around the world. And from the day one I walked the door, I told them what I wanted to do was go to Africa. So first they sent me down back to Georgia. So that was second time in Georgia to run a soybean processing plant up here in Gainesville. And they were unsure where they wanted to place me, a young black man, where we're going to put him in the company so it'd be all right. They chose Georgia, and they were surprised to learn that I knew so many of the soybean farmers down in South Georgia from having lived
yep.
down there. So that worked out. Then from there, one time they took me to see the president of the company, and I was able to tell them again. So that's when they decided they were going to work on letting me see how food is moved around the world. And they sent me to Singapore as a regional investment manager. So I visited all the non-communist nations from India to Japan and Philippines. Um, so I could see and got to see all the resources that were available, how people react with nature in the community. So that gave me a great understanding. And then finally, they let me go to Nigeria, which I greenfielded. What is greenfielding? Opened up lines of business that had never, they weren't doing any business in Nigeria until and not having an office and on the ground. So,
I just wanted to explore like Cargill and
mm,
basically what you that experience I think was very pivotal for you. And you probably I just kind of wanted to explore that and what you again, what were the takeaways? What were the big takeaways from that whole experience? I mean, you really did get to see how food moved around the world.
yeah,
Um, but what were your big takeaways from Cargill?
big takeaways that the, they my takeaways fit in a part of the equation I gave you for all of it. But we're talking about food sovereignty, food integrity. Cargill never produced anything. They processed. Okay, they didn't grow corn, but they would get high fructose corn syrup and ethanol for your cars. They would provide the corn to Kellogg's, the chocolate to Hershey, the cacao, the cocoa for Hershey's.
Yep.
So the oil to fry potatoes, chips for Lay's, um, purchase and sell the potatoes to them for the French fries that they have in their restaurant. But they never farmed. They didn't do any farming. They just processed, traded. That's how they didn't get the risk. And that's what the Chicago Board of Trade does. That's where you can hedge your production, hedge your purchases. If you buy cash for, let's say, soybeans, and then you sell the futures on the market. So you lock your margin in of how much profit you're going to make on that trade. So it doesn't make any difference which way the market moves. You're still ahead because you hedged your trade. That
Yep.
makes sense.
Yep.
Um, so to see that, I mean, they provided orange juice to Minute Maid. I mean, they're just huge. You do business with Cargill every single day, and but you don't know their name. You don't see their name on any packages whatsoever. But the products that are going through those places. Now I've been away from Cargill. I left them, and they kicked me out in 1991. So it was that 35 years since I went to the Department of Agriculture after that. So some of the intricacies of what they do on a daily basis, uh, I don't have that now. But I can say that the man who ran Cargill for the last 10 years was my boss in Singapore. Okay. The man who is the chairman, the executive chairman, was my boss when we were in Singapore. And I know the things that I taught him, that some of the practical things that he did, that he does, how he does it. And several of the people who were at the top of the company, at the end of their career, because so many of them folks only had one job, who worked for Cargill, only had one job in their whole life. And
Wow.
that's working for Cargill. And that's part of the club. They brought you in there and indoctrinated you and keep you. And you work your way. My boss in Gainesville, Georgia, was my first, yeah, I guess basically he was my first boss. He, he got to a certain point, he said, you rise, you go. If you don't rise up in the company, we had enough. He said, now we're going to pay you off. And what's so interesting about the payoff, whatever the uh, pension is that you got, never get an increase. Never. A lot of companies now, they'll give you a certain, whatever, if the economy changes, they give you some additional. I'm like, Cargill don't do that. Whatever they gave you 30 years ago is what you get
That's
today.
what you.
Hmm. There's no help. And all I earned is a car note. Uh, but I do own my car at this point.
So, okay, so now, okay, so then you did end up in the Clinton administration.
Yeah.
So, so you went from this private company moving product around the world to the US government. That must have been a big transition.
Yeah, well, it was. Yeah, I guess it's my ambition. I thought the big mistake that I made or the lesson that I learned, I honestly thought that being in the government in a high position, substantive position, was the top. And don't pardon my French, but the same kind of assholes that you find out here in the world were there too in the government. There wasn't no change. It's same dynamics. Most of those political appointees were more concerned with the size of their title, the size of their desk, what their salary was, than they were to be of service. And my credo which I got from George Washington Carver, is simply service that measures success. That is for me, how I measure what I do. If I have been of service, have I been able to make a contribution, constructive contribution, to the uplift of as many people as I can? But anyway, that's not what you do in government. I mean, and you just look to see what's going on around us today. Some people they're serving themselves. Follow the money. They serving themselves and not really interested in helping people. Um, so I saw this up close and personal. Mike Espy was the secretary. Mike Espy was the only black Secretary of Agriculture, and he was the first appointee to his cabinet that Clinton made. And Mike Espy actually wrote a letter of recommendation for me to get into the government, and then he ends up being the secretary. So essentially, I worked for him, um, and they chased him out. And then there's several others like me who they came and got soon after. And they kicked me out of there. They said, you too what was the word that they use? Controversial or something like that. Because they didn't understand. Because I was there trying to help people. They didn't want you to
You
do that.
wanted to get things done.
Yes, ma'am. And we got some things done, and some of those things we got done, they reversed them immediately. They put me out. One of the big things was the Farm Bill of that year, 93, required a disparity study to show the inequities in government. Oh, that was a big one. It was in the Farm Bill, so it had to be done. And doing that contract, that was on my desk. That was on my desk. I can remember my deputy said, "Boy, when it was time, he would had to. I agreed for him to have authority to sign things, okay, so that I could have some freedom on that." And I can remember when it came time to sign the results of that contract, the results of that study. He said, "Rashid, I'm going to sign this, but it's going to be the end of you." Okay, he said that to me. Okay? I'm going to sign it. Okay, but this is going to be the end of you. You ain't gonna have no more opportunities, and I didn't. And so they had, the pick. You may
When
have
he
heard.
said that to you, what what went through your mind? Like, what was your reaction to that? Obviously, you told him to sign it anyway.
Yeah, my honest reaction, I don't think it's appropriate for your podcast. Okay, so, but you can imagine, and I didn't say it out loud. It was just, you know, I didn't care. And thank you for that introduction that you gave me. We started the show, and that was reflected in how I responded to that man.
Yes.
This is what we needed to do. So there were two studies, two things. There's a Dillinger report that was done by the Department of Justice that said the Secretary of Agriculture had full access to the Treasury of the United States to settle any disparate treatment. So he got gone, and so did the secretary. And I didn't produce it. I hired a man out of Atlanta to do the study, which proved the disparate treatment. And they kicked me out. And Dave Miller he had to struggle to get paid for doing the study that was authorized by Congress. Okay. Because they took that Miller report and buried it so deep because it told the truth, the disparate treatment that black farmers, and it expanded, poor white farmers, women had received the treatment from the department. Then Pigford itself, it was Pigford 1 and Pigford 2, and then there's a final settlement. But Pigford 1, the lawyers made more money than the farmers. Okay, we had, they limited what the farmers could get to $50,000, but the lawyers could charge whatever the lawyers charged, they could get paid for. Okay, Pigford 2, then they limited the lawyers, paid some of the farmers, but it wasn't much. So it turns out to be the largest settlement than anybody's ever gotten, but they managed to limit it to the couple of $1 billion that they paid out. They made it
Right.
so hard for people to get compensated, recompense, I guess is the word. Um, it was very sad. And there's folks still today talking about it. Um, yeah, they still talking about that.
Do you, when you reflect on your time at the government, do you feel good about what you accomplished?
Yes, but it was extraordinarily disappointing. I mean, put me in a bad state of mind for quite a few years. I mean, as hard as it worked, trying to help people and get punished.
Yeah.
It was quite painful, and it took a while. After that, I did some good work on private level, um, but it took part of the recovery, and I guess this is where we're going with the story. After coming out of that, was the creation of Truly Living Well.
Hold that thought. I want to ask, so because I want to put you in this scenario because you didn't really say this in the book, and I was curious about this. So you were in that you were in Ghana in, I guess, Jazz Tone, and you met those three women from Atlanta, Georgia, and they had an idea, that they wanted to talk to you about, but you ended up talking to them about your idea. But you never really talked about how you formulated that idea. Like where, was it percolating the whole time? Like how did this come together for you? And then I want to talk obviously about what you ended up building, but
You're
when,
smart. That's a good one. I like
because
that.
you left it out. Like I was like, how did he come up with this? Like, because I'm always, you know,
Well,
I'm
here's how.
always thinking about that. I'm always like, because your idea encapsulated like everything that you like, it just took everything you learned.
That's the point. That's exactly the point. It wasn't just an idea. Well, I guess it did come out of the air, but it, truly living well, the implementation, execution of, and the building of truly living well was it was all the knowledge that I had, all the experiences that I had up until that time, and I was able to do it. And that's why I was successful.
When you were sitting there with those three women and they were expressing their idea, when you conveyed yours, was that something you had been thinking about, or did you just did it just come out of you that day?
I went over I hit everything. It's all connected. It's my life. I went to Ghana. Another step back. Dave Miller is the man who did the disparity study that I hired him to do at the Department of Agriculture. Years later, he had an opportunity to buy the Ghana Cotton Company. His wife said, "Get Rashid to go over there and do that work." So that's how I got to Ghana. Jazz Tone is where's my hangout was. Um, the the purchase of the company of the jazz of Ghana Cotton, that didn't work out, but that's the transition. I was there on Dave Miller's money, that he gotten paid from me hiring him.
Yep.
All right.
I just wanted to know what, you were sitting there with those women. Where did this idea manifest from? Like, how did you bring it all together and present something to them?
Well,
Were you thinking about that while you were in Ghana?
no, I can't. No, I've had a highly blessed life. What was next always just showed up. God sent it. Okay, I am a firm believer. And what I've learned as long as I stayed on my path, committed, doing the work that's in front of me, paying attention to today, because I've never experienced tomorrow. All I have is today, this moment. And yesterday is a wonderful history. You can look back. I'm at a stage in life now. I'm definitively a senior. So I can look back and see how all these things are connected. But at the moment, I'm just focusing on what's in front of me. And so when they gave that, it just came. I said, look, this is what we can do. And if you saw what happened after I came back to the States, we started in a backyard. Site number one was down the road in the yard. You couldn't grow nothing, man. Everything ateliated. You know that word, eteliation? That's when things grow long and spindly. And,
Yeah, we've all experienced
yeah.
that.
There wasn't, it was insufficient sun in that backyard,
Yeah.
but that is where we began and just continued to expand. So
Yep.
I got a little bit ahead. So I cannot say there was a revelatory moment, but maybe I can. I mean, sitting in the bar, listening to that music and reading books. And people thought I used to drink soda water with lime. So they swore it was vodka or gin that I was drinking, but it wasn't. I don't do alcohol. Uh, and I said, let me just tell them what I want to do. And I guess that's
So
when it
what
came.
did you say to them? What did you tell them you wanted to do at that time?
Grow food in urban area. Okay. Grow food in urban area.
So in your book, I'll say that you had written, it was on page 269. It says, the 360-degree process of urban agriculture improves nutrition and health, beautifies the community, raises the property values, creates green spaces that clean the air, provides a meeting place for people, and creates jobs. Through growing food, people are learning new skills that are transferable to other professions and other areas of their lives. So urban agriculture was at the core of this. Talk to me about that.
I wrote that.
Yes, you wrote that. You wrote a lot of compelling things in this book. It's pretty amazing.
Uh,
Um,
that was pretty good. No, I can't remember the phrase specifically, but all that is true. It really does. And it really is. Uh,
there were a lot of components to what you created there. I mean,
mm,
you had a CSA,
mm,
which was helping to feed people. You did programs there, education.
mm.
You were bringing people together from a community perspective. Um, Talk to me about some of that.
Oh man, it organic to me.
Yes, you are all about the soil and composting, so you have to talk about that because
Yes.
that resonates with me big time.
Uh, Organic I define as complete. So all
I
of
love
it,
that.
and I had 15, 17 different revenue streams. Um, that if I could get as I got the money, then I could do that particular work. We are training from my son wrote the proposal to the government, USDA, got $1 million to be able to train people. So I was able to bring people out to the farm to train them how to farm. And it's what's amazing is how many to see the activities these folks are involved in. Right? We had the biggest compost facility. And my mantra for 10, 12 years was compost, compost, compost. Okay.
Yeah.
If I couldn't see it, if I don't see it in nature, I ain't doing it. Okay. And I can try to replicate nature, and that's what the compost does. The trees drop their leaves. And to do it here in Atlanta, which is the greenest city, made it possible. All right, the trees drop their leaves, they break down all the microbes, the roly-polies, the earthworms, and clearest indication of the quality of your soil. Uh, Sorry about that. The number of earthworms that you find
Yep.
in the soil. So I just wanted to replicate that, and that's the basis of the teaching. And that's really at the beginning. Um, that's what I told people. But as we grew, they were able to see it in the manifestation of what it is that I was teaching. We had the largest compost facility. Now there's a couple of compost companies, and the people who are running that compost company came through Truly Living Well. The urban ag director for City of Atlanta came through Truly Living Well. The very first sale of my book was at the home of the man who was the first urban ag director. Okay. Pattie interviewed me at that event with
Yes.
all these people. And so it, it's it's just all come together. I've had a wonderful life. Really has. Really been a blessing how all these things have.
One thing that stood out, I know you had to move a few times, but that one last time when you had to move and you actually moved all the soil and the
Yeah,
trees, and I was like, oh wow, that was first of all, I thought that was amazing because most people when they move a farm, they can't take all that investment in the soil. It stays, but you were like, nope, I'm moving it.
yeah, that was crazy. And you can imagine, I couldn't go to a bank or anybody and say, "Look, give me $750,000 to move the soil." I said, "What's wrong with you?" So I mean, it was, And looking back, it really was crazy. But that makes me crazy, don't
I loved it.
it?
I just absolutely loved it. And I love that you found the investment to do it. I mean, that was one thing too that was very powerful. And how, you and your team were so driven to find the funds to make sure this sustained. Um, and that is not easy.
No, it's not. I'll give all of them people that work with us credit for how they participated. But seeing where Truly Living Well is today, uh, this is one of the blessings or benefits of being a senior citizen is being able to go back and look and see where I was so busy. So many people, if they're working on something, they're always looking over, hey, come over here and look and see what I'm doing. Hey, that's not me. I just did the work. And if you wanted to help, you could. I would tell you, you got all these ideas of what we can do. I said, those are great ideas. So you handle it because I'm busy. And all the different components. So with all the humility, whatever humility I got. Um, they were not people, here's here I try to explain it this way. Quite often, folks that found a business and start a business, it takes three or four people to replace them because all the stuff they was doing. My
Yep.
workday was 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. If you sent me an email, you would have an answer before you came to work the next day. So that meant sometimes I'm sitting up 3, 4 o'clock in the morning answering emails if I had a busy day to make sure that I responded to you about whatever your concerns, interests were. And that's just how I work. So unfortunately, True Living Well didn't have that after I left. And over time it disintegrated to now it's not in the best of shape. I had a call from a man just yesterday. Today's Tuesday, right? Yeah, yesterday.
Yes. Yep.
Who was some things he wants to do down there. So we'll get together whenever he's ready. Um, but I worked hard. That's why at the end of that time I was tired, you know. And the question I had to ask myself is, have I done what Most High instructed me to do? Is satisfied with the work I did. And the blessing is people don't blame me for the demise of Truly Living Well. I still get praise or credit for the heights that we were able to reach and the number of people was able to inspire. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm not blamed for the demise. There's so many things that go on to sound. And I guess another aphorism that I believe it's amazing how much you can get done if you're not concerned with who gets the credit. Yeah. There's too many of us standing around looking, give me credit. Look at me. Uh, let's do the work. Uh,
Yep.
but did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Are you doing any like okay, so you left there. You which must have been a tough decision. I can just imagine. I
But they
felt
did
that.
they did give me a big party. That was
Yes, I read that. It sounded like a lot of fun.
some of those people they happy for me, happy for what been done, and I'm sure there were quite a few of them were there were glad to see me go. So so it all came together.
So, what are you doing now? How are you
Helping.
satisfying your ambitions and,
Yeah.
like what are you doing now?
My ambitions, that's a good word. I probably need to think about that a little bit more because the extent I don't have the same kind of ambition. Okay. What I really sincerely do is help as many people as I can. I mentioned Shirley Sherrod and Charles Sherrod, the new community.
Yes.
I was just down there last week before last, spent a couple of days looking at what they're doing and giving my opinion. I work hard not to tell people what to do. I try to tell people I can tell you what I've done and I can tell you why I did it. And if there's any wisdom in that, if there's something you can learn from it, then that's cool. Had a young man come by here. He's doing uh, hydroponics. Very excited about his work in hydroponics. I have no interest whatsoever in hydroponics. To me, it's counterintuitive.
I
Uh,
agree. I 100% agree.
but when he left here, he was thanking me because he thought he was going to run into, real opposition. And I told him straight up, I have nothing to do with it, but we still able to have a conversation.
Right.
Uh, he was able to, I hope I was able to impart some. No, let me try it this way. I imparted my experience and gave him the reasons that I didn't think that hydroponics was appropriate. Aquaponics is cool, but not hydroponics. And so he was very pleased with the interaction. This is a young man that graduated high school at 14. Smart, smart. And he's doing hydroponics and coming along pretty well with it. But I explained to him why it didn't make sense to me, the problem that I have with it. So I meet people many different levels, different persuasions, and helping folk. The very first thing I did after I left True Living Well was to write this book, which folks can get on my website. This is self-serving now.
No, I want you to do that because
Uh,
I will say that the personal note from you that it went in the mail was very impactful. You sent an email saying it's in the mail. I thought that was pretty impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, my email address is Rashid. No, my website is the Nuri Group, thenurigroup.com. Email is Rashid at thenurigroup.com. Uh, that was the first thing I did. I sat down for 3 weeks and did nothing. And then I started writing that book and got it done, put out, uh, traveled around a little bit with that. Then COVID hit, uh, you know, and I've had to slow down some
And you
myself.
just returned from a pretty big trip.
Yeah, it was
How long were you away?
over a month.
Wow.
And folk are it's this is reflective of my general nature. I had several people tell me they were amazed that I did the trip. I threw out my back. I did about 10 countries in that time frame. In the Balkans, which I had never planned on going to, went because my brother invited me. His wife didn't want to get that close to Russia. And then I was back in Ghana. And we were on buses. I was staying in different hotel rooms just about every night. But I got to see some more of the world. So I'm up about 50 countries now that I spent time in.
It's
And
amazing.
uh, and riding on that bus I'm glad they were luxury buses. Because some of them they said, they were amazed, particularly after I hurt my back, how I was able to do that. Thought they would have gone home. But the what's the word I want? I can't find it. That the attitude doing that trip embodies the attitude that I've had about my work all my life. I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. I'm not going to let anything stop me from doing what I want to do, okay? Because it's direct from God. Do this. So that's what I've done. So the fact that you know I don't I don't have the mobility that I used to have, uh, but very few people have worked as hard as I have and relentlessly as I had. And there's a cost for that. And I'm paying that cost. But I've seen a lot of the world. And that 50 countries that I've worked in is more than most people will ever see. But my brother is up to 90.
Yeah, you said that. I was like,
My,
wow.
my youngest sibling is 15 years younger than me. This boy been to 90 countries. All he does, he retired at age 50.
Good
Okay.
for him.
He had his house is paid for. He had planned this since he was in right at the end of when he graduated from college. He wanted to retire at age 50. So all he does is play golf and travel.
So 50 countries. Uh, do you have a favorite?
A favorite, yeah, wherever I put my hat. I enjoyed Indonesia. I really did, and I enjoyed Nigeria. Um, so in Asia was Indonesia. I enjoyed India, and my spiritual guide is from India. So he and I, I've seen, and for him, India is everything underneath the Himalayas. So I made 10, 12 trips to Pakistan. I've been to Bangladesh and all over India, down south, all the way down to Madras in the south, Sri Lanka. So I've seen that area, and it's so rich. That place is so beautiful, um, particularly when you get outside the cities. And see the, it's up as you get up in the Punjab, which is sort of desert. It's very dry, versus southern India, which is Bangalore, Madras. It's beautiful, just so lush. Mm. And I got to see it all over Asia. Indonesia, I never realized there were so many different colors of green, shades of green. Them folks grow food on the side of volcanoes. Okay, the terrace of volcano
Yep.
and grow food there. It's just amazing. Everywhere you go. In Nigeria, Africa, I've been I've been to West Africa and East Africa. I haven't been to North Africa, Mauritania and Morocco, Tunisia. I haven't been those places, but I've been to East Africa, Ethiopia on down the coast, and then West Africa uh, to see how people live and how food is grown and how the products are handled. I mean, this has been part of my education. It is my education. I got a little bit of book learning, but that was only enough so I could ask the proper question.
Right.
So what I tell people these days, I've said this for a long time. There are many people who have a greater depth of experience in any particular aspect of agriculture, way more experience than I do, but very few have the breadth of experience that I have been blessed with. And what that experience enables me to do is ask questions. So I know how to ask a question to get more understanding of any particular area. So, I'm not ignorant. I'm not completely ignorant, but I can't get down. I know Dave Miller's father made 55 crops in a row down in South Georgia. 55 crops in a row. And his children finally made him sit down. Teddy ends up running the farm. 50, that's a lot of years to be making crops. Okay. So he finally sat down. He lasted a few more years after that. I hope I can live a little longer. I'm not ready to go yet. But I will tell you that getting up in the morning, I'm so happy to wake up in the morning. Getting out of the bed some days is harder than others. Sometimes I need to stop during the day. And I've had to give myself permission to do that because the aches and the pains that I'm enduring is because I pushed myself so hard. Yeah. The metaphor I use, you'll always find somebody most people just burn a candle. That's their life. You got some people who burn a candle on both ends. Okay. I burn mine in the middle too.
I like that.
So I'm paying for it. I'm paying for it. But I have someone told me a few years ago, and I pretty much adopted it. The true sign of success in this life, your children are doing better than you do. And my children they're amazing. They're doing so well. And that's pleasing. That's pleasing. I was a single parent for six of them. I mean, I don't want anybody to think I was just out there dropping seed, although I am a farmer. Uh, I do plant some seed, raised it. So I had six of them as a single parent, and I had seven altogether. And traveled the world. It's been and you mentioned this trip I just came off of. I saw so much in that short period of time. Let me, I didn't really understand. I went to the Balkans. Did I say that?
Yes.
Okay. And I really didn't. My brother, no, who did? My son gave me a book on the Balkans so I could get some understanding. I read a little bit of it, but it's really going there is helped me to understand the history that took place in that region. The Balkans is the huge peninsula. At the very bottom is Greece. To the west, across the Mediterranean, is Italy. Right? To the east, northeast is Russia, Ukraine. Okay, you got Hungary over there, and you get down to the bottom to realize that all these um, people, Alexander and other explorers, the Silk Road went through Greece on this little peninsula that took you over into Turkey. And the interaction that Turkey had with Europe, just one strip of land. And that's the only way you could get by land from Europe to the Middle East and to Asia. And the Balkans are a series of range of mountains. And in each valley between the mountains, a different tribe. And a man named Tito, Yusuf Tito, kept those folks together in the Union of the Slavs, Yugoslavia, had them all together until some of the Europeans got in trying to mess with it. I mean, Herzegovina, the Sarajevo, all man, I can't even go through the list now. There's a whole bunch of countries over there. In one place we were traveling north. So on the right side was the ocean, and on the left side, literally, were mountains. And I mean, the geography is so dramatic. Uh, yeah, yeah, that was nice. And then in Ghana, when I was there 20 years ago, the head of state office was in a slave dungeon. Okay, now they built a new seat of government, which is shaped like an Ashanti stool. It's a beautiful building. You know, and that was nice to see that they got out of that dungeon. Because those dungeons along that coast like amusement parks to them. They get money. People come over, Americans come over and pay money to go down in these dungeons. And I can't deal with that. You know, so I don't do that. But that's a little synopsis.
So, Rashid, what's your favorite vegetable? What do you like to eat? What plants do you like to eat?
Oh, I like greens.
Any
Green.
particular greens?
No, I got I, right in there now in my refrigerator. I got a slaw that I made that has cabbage, kale. Um, what's that? Ooh, that's one of the problems with getting to be this age. Just start dropping names. Uh, couple of different greens all mixed and chopped in, some onion,
Okay,
carrots. Uh,
that sounds good.
yeah, the latter. And then, this one has some pineapple,
That
raisin.
sounds really good.
It is pretty good. Really good. Chard, that's what I was trying to think.
Yes. Oh,
Chard.
chard, I love it. I love growing it too. Yeah,
Mhm.
all that stuff. And there's nothing like when you're growing it. There's not the taste.
Here's the joke that my daughter, Alia is her name. She was sitting up one time and said, complaining, no, we had every day you had to eat these green beans. And many people who heard that or hear this think she was talking about green beans, that you're going to,
Right.
she was talking about the beans that turn green because that's what I fed my children. So I had to I worked, I had to cook for them, make sure they had food, that's why I said I burned it in the middle too, the candle in the middle. Uh, but they're all healthy. I think they may have had three cavities, the six children.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
There was a quote in one. I just want to end with this quote because I thought this was very compelling. I mean, you have quotes throughout the book that I loved, but I liked this one. It says, "Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, 'You owe me.' Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky."
Mhm.
Hafiz. I loved that.
Hafiz is Sufi mystic. Uh, each chapter of the book has a quotation.
Yep.
And I think you're the first person that's come back to me with one of the chapter heads. So I appreciate that. You really did read that book, huh?
I definitely read the book, every
Yeah.
bit of it. So I have one last question. The picture behind you on the shelf there, what is that? It's a
That is
beautiful
my,
picture.
yeah, my daughter. My I have five sons and two daughters. She's the youngest. She's an artist. She's a designer, and she there's a here. Let me see it one
It's
second.
beautiful.
Hmm. See, that's it. Can you see that?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it's part of.
Wow.
All right.
Careful.
Yeah, I don't need to be falling off anything. Yeah, Zarina is her name. Oh, you still can't see that arm. Yeah, she's very talented.
Yeah, I
Very.
can see. It's
Mhm.
beautiful. Beautiful. It kept catching my eye during talking to you. It was kind of speaking to me. So, well, thank you for this. I truly enjoyed reading the book, learning so much. And you've just really inspired me to, I question, sometimes I question my integrity, like, oh, just do it. Don't, why do you always have to, like, why do you always have to, I sometimes do things and I move in different directions because I don't believe, like, my integrity just becomes like kind of, it highlights it, and it's kind of anti what I probably should be doing, meaning, well, that's where the money is, or that's where you might make more progress. But reading your book and talking to you just, reinforces the fact that my integrity is so important.
That's
And
it.
following this mission, keeping, you know, keeping at this agriculture thing is really, really important. So,
Yeah. If it doesn't sit well in your stomach, in your core, leave it alone.
yep,
Leave it alone.
yep.
You have to be one with whatever it is you're doing. And I think that though there's too many people, my belief is a lot of there's only one God, one universe. It's all complete. Okay. And whatever I had here, let me back up one more step. I got a book downstairs called The Universe in 40 Steps. I found it in a bookstore in Hollywood many, 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 many years ago.
I remember reading this. Yeah, like you talking about this. Yep.
Oh, I talked about that in the book.
No, 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 no. I remember reading about it in your because you wrote about it in your book. But tell us about that.
Um,
I liked that.
they got a picture of a woman sitting in a rocking chair on the porch. Then they go down by 10 times, and you see a mosquito on her arm, which is huge in the picture. Keep going down, down, down till you get down to the electrons, protons, neutrons of inside the human body. Then they take you up in 30 steps up into the universe where the planets and the suns and all that, they look exactly the same as what's on the inside of us. It's all one. It's just one. And that it's for us to understand and try to find those connections, how we fit in. And that book had a real impact on me to help me understand how everything's connected. That's all I'm saying. So what I think that people who get cancer inside them is because their lives are confused. So the human body gets confused and tries to find a way to rectify it. Yeah, this creation is much bigger than this planet. That's one of something that I've been thinking about these last few years is how huge the universe is. And scientists have only seen two-thirds. They've seen aspects of 2/3 of the universe, how huge it is. I'll give you this, and then you can let me go. Sun, the sun, our sun, is 93 million miles away. It takes light 8 minutes to get to the Earth, traveling at 188,000 miles per second. Uh, Put some of these numbers down and multiply it out. The next nearest sun is 4.2 light years. It's how far That's how far away it is. It takes light 4.2 years traveling at 188,000 miles per second to get to the Earth. That's huge. And that's the closest one to us. That universe is huge. And my personal belief, there is a creator outside of the creation. The universe is so well organized, it makes sense, just like the human body with all those molecules, all the elements that are in our body, is so well organized, so is the universe. And you stop and think, I have stopped and think, and I urge you to. Um, the written history of humans on this planet, the oldest one that you can find is only 10,000 years. Okay, and that's Indian. Chinese got 5,000 years of written history. They tell you this 40,000 years. You see different types of humans that are on the earth. But it's been millions of years when the dinosaurs was here. Okay. And I wonder, this one get me in trouble. I wonder if human beings, back in the 90s when Clinton was in office, they showed that all humans on the planet Earth have 99.5% the same genes, look all the same. We come up with different hair colors, different skin colors, hair texture, which makes a small difference, but fundamentally we're all the same. Okay. Yet we find ways to fight with each other. We can't figure out how to get along. So I wonder if human beings on this planet is a test from another universe, part of the universe. They dropped all these seeds, us, on this planet to see how we would develop and how we would get along. And unfortunately, I think it's punk.
I was going to say,
We
we're
funked
not
it.
doing too well. Although
No, we ain't.
there are, you know, there are people who do. So
Yeah, well, you've asked me wonderful questions. I appreciate this opportunity to chat with you. And if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know.
I will. Thank
And
you.
these folk, anybody that has listened to this, if you like my book, it's
I will
on.
definitely link people to everything. And grateful for everything you have done.
All right, well, let me know if I can do anything to help you.
I will. Thank
All
you,
right,
Rashid. You have a wonderful day.
you do the same. Peace.
I hope our AgriTourist podcast prompts you to think more about where your food comes from, whether it be your vegetables, fruits, meats, and even those sweet treats. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with someone you think may truly benefit from or be inspired by it. Visit us at agra-tourist.com. Until next time.